Hello, and welcome to a solo stream of, I guess, the Morningscape podcast, though this is Matt Moody, and it's just me today. We're going to go through the 12-game NHL DFS slate later on tonight. There's also a 6 o'clock game that I will, I guess, look at. But yeah, no DJ. It's just us going through things, so let's get on into it.
You're saying they're looking like an idiot.
Well, is that any different than normal?
This is the first time I will admit was unbelievably wrong.
All right. Thank you for coming to hang out with me. We have 12 games, a 13th at 6 o'clock, like I just mentioned. Note that this is streamed on both DJ's YouTube channel and my own. So if you are on DJ's, which of course is much larger than my fledgling little channel, please do subscribe to my channel as well. Hopefully, next year or next summer or whatever, I can just post things on my own, but I figure StreamYard connects to both of them. Why not just do it on both? It's not the end of the world. So I hope all of you had a wonderful Christmas or the holidays. I wanted to give people just a moment to get on in here because, boy, was my holiday something interesting. So in the Discord, as you may know, I mentioned that last week, pretty much the morning after the podcast for the Tuesday slate, I drove up to Rochester. Now, my dad and sisters moved from Rochester to Nashville in the last 5 years or so. Well, one of my sisters did, I think, 3 or 4 years ago, and then within the last 2 years, the others have followed. Something along those lines. My dad leaving this past summer. So I was like, I'm not going to Nashville for Christmas. I'll figure something out. And so when I've gone up before, I normally stop in and say hey to DJ, or he stops in and says hi. But the rest of my family, aunts and uncles, are in the Rochester area. So I was going to do Christmas Eve with them like always and go with DJ's family for the rest. Well, I get in on Tuesday, and remember, DJ was sick on Tuesday, or for Monday night's podcast for Tuesday. It turns out DJ had the flu, so DJ did not come to DJ's family Christmas party. So that's what I did on Christmas. I did Christmas with DJ's family. Now, it sounds funnier, but in reality, I grew up with them. My sisters were growing up best friends with his little cousins who lived 2 doors down from me. So it's not like it wasn't anything weird. It was wonderful to see all the people. But yeah, thinking I would spend a holiday with DJ did not happen. So there it is. I think he's in Rochester today doing stuff with his family. So there's that. That's why he's not here. But in any case, I just found that I feel like I never see DJ, yet I talk to him, 74 times a day. He called me for, I think, 40 minutes this morning about the NFL slate, and then we didn't even talk about hockey, so it is what it is. I come to think of it, did I enter an NFL team? I did. Perfect. Must have done that last night. Okay. So we have, I think, lots of information is overselling it. We have some information for the night slate. Let's take a... All right, the chat. God bless you for being friends with DJ for so long. Indeed, Willie. Someone's got to do it, Oh. I'm hearing everything you say twice. Let me check that. But if anyone else is having that issue, let me know. But that would be strange if so. I think the settings are okay. Oh, Sham says, okay. Sorry, I'm reading the chat in hyperspeed here, trying to do a bunch of stuff. Where was I? Yeah, the check stopped caching from Kathy a long time ago, but DJ pretends the things that I'm interested in, he's also interested in, and that's all I need in a friend. Just someone to talk about pretty much DFS with nonstop. So all the other stuff that's for his wife to deal with, the Pokemon, the music, all the shitty bands. Oh my god, so many bands with music I can't stand. But that's DJ and I. So you can see I have on the old Sabres Darlene jersey. No Darlene for tonight, unfortunately. But yeah, looking to make it 8 in a row. the fever pitch is, my dad's going, "Hey, should I watch the Sabres tonight?" And I go, "No, don't. They're gonna lose once you start watching." So, um, yeah, it's an exciting time to care about the stupid Sabres who do nothing but break our hearts. All right, let's take a look at the rainbow sheet for today. And by the way, if you're the betting sort, at the end of this, there is a DraftKings, I think it's like a 50% goal boost. So basically, instead of guaranteed goals, I'm just going to place a boosted goal parlay over on DraftKings. I feel like that's, I can just do that because why not? So here is the rainbow sheet. As you can see, the showdown slate at 6 o'clock, Rangers Islanders. All four quadrants look pretty horrific. Maybe the Islanders defensively are a bit more permissive, but even Rittich has been fine this year. Sorokin, of course, has been excellent. So the goal pace here looks miserable. The expected goals pace is, the lowest on the day, even though it's not on the main slate. And I don't think there's much worth covering other than Bo Horvat being back. So some of the line combinations will be different if you are playing Showdown. I might post that in the Discord when I'm done with this stream. If stuff is still open for that 6 o'clock slate, I might run it through the sheet and post that for you. But let's go through the main slate, starting things. Let's see. Here we go. Starting things off with Boston and Buffalo. Boston, we didn't see lines, so I'm just going with last game. They got clobbered by the Canadians, so I don't know what to expect here. So keep an eye out for this if you are interested in Boston. But last game they rolled Geeky, Lindholm, Pasta, probably their top three players, top three forwards. Middlestat, Zaka, Arvidsson, Tanner Janot, Minton Kastelich, and then Janot's out, so I'm just guessing Alex Steves is in. Don't know that for sure. And then Isimont, Corrali, Huznadinov. Obviously had to make a bit of a guess on how they replace Janot, but I think Fraser Minton stays on the power play too. I'm not one to target Sabres even on their worst of days, so when they're actually playing pretty well, I don't really target them anyway. Just because I feel like most of their problem tends to come from goaltending when they truly spring a leak. And I don't know. When is the Sabres goaltending going to spring a leak? I truly go with God if you think you know the answer. So ultimately it's this top line. That top line is 18.9K, 18, almost 19K for about 36 and a half expected fantasy points per game last 10. That's a pretty strong mark. The Sabres team without Dahlin is certainly worse than the Sabres with Dahlin. I don't think I'm telling tales out of school there. But yeah, Pasternak is clearly I think the number one sort of eye catcher because his price at 8,200 just is in a different class from the other studs on this slate with very similar type production lately. So you look at the expected fantasy points list here, which by the way, I post this in the Discord every day. All for free in the Discord. So you should DM me at Fake Moods on Twitter if you want in. McDavid, Draisaitl, Kachuk, Kucherov, Celebrini, Pasta, McKinnon are like the top expected fantasy point per game players over the last 10. And then you see that all of them are more expensive than Pasta, and only Draisaitl is close. And I suspect that Draisaitl will be quite popular later, but we'll sort through ownership, I think, at the end of this. So Kucherov, McKinnon, Celebrini at 9K is disgusting. McDavid, 9,500. Pasta's actually a value with this in mind. It's not a crazy value by any means, but it is worthwhile. And I do think the ownership will come through on this Boston side. I can't say I really like this game a whole lot. Getting to the Buffalo side, we know they're rolling Krebs, Thompson, Doan, Oslin, Norris, Tuck, Quinn, McLeod, Benson, Greenway, Dunn, Malenstein. Zach Metza enters the lineup. Connor Timmins broke his leg last week or something, and now without Rasmus Dahlin, that's where Metza comes from. He might get second power play time. I moved it to Noah Ostlund, but Metza had I think he was dominating the AHL with the Amerks. I could be wrong there, but I'm pretty sure it was him who was. Or actually, I'm thinking Zach Jones. Zach Jones was the guy dominating the power play. So I do not think that was Metza. So in any case, Osland, I'm not sure about. He's not been great either way in his NHL stint, especially for fantasy. I think he looks like a good player. But we know the top power play will be Tage, Doan, Norris, Benson, and Bo Byram, unless something drastic changed that, didn't get reported about. Bo Byram is interesting. I mean, he's 3,200, so he's going to stand out as a value regardless. Samson jumped up on my lap. Hello, Samson. I looked through some of the data we have trying to mimic Byram without Dahlin. And so basically what I did is just looked at Byram's minutes with Matthias Samuelsson at 5-on-5 and his minutes with Tage on the power play. And of course, that's not a perfect proxy. I don't have a, games in which Dahlin missed filter that I can just magically apply to this data set. But let me let's see. Because I was looking at it. Yep, here we go. We have 75 minutes to work with between those two states, which is not terrible. And then when you sort of input it for Byram on this sheet here, that seems like way too many minutes. That would be because I did not paste his values. Okay. There we go. Now go back to Buffalo. And Byram's shot rate does tick up a good amount. It's still not great. This was like a 0.7 something before, I believe. Well, let me just undo, and we can look. Oh, okay. Well, that's the problem here. I have too many Excels open. That's a common refrain in my life. 0.79 for Byram in that circumstance. And then blah, blah, blah. We do all the stuff. And here we go. Maybe that show and tell wasn't quite worth it. But in those limited minutes, his shot rate does go up. His primary point rate skyrockets. And, he's still above average points per minute. And I'm positive his time on ice goes up when there's no Dahlin. So that was super interesting. I mean, I don't think you need to try too hard to get me to play Bo Byram in this circumstance. But, you think of his production on the year and kind of ever since the trade. And while he's certainly been better than Casey Middlestat, who was traded for 1-for-1, I certainly do think there was potential there that just hasn't come to pass, especially from like the fantasy standpoint. But that might represent something of like it's just Dahlin blocking him and he can do it. I don't know. It's 75 minutes. And even then, this number does technically go down, the DK point rate that Byram has in those minutes. But I also didn't include shorthanded time. And does he get a bunch of blocks shorthanded because he's covering for Dahlin? I don't know. I just wanted to play around with it and see what happened to his shot rate specifically. And it gets closer to league average. And we know that he has the prospect pedigree and the puck skills to produce, high-end outcomes for DFS. So for 3,200, Byram's going to be chalky regardless, but I think that's even more reason to, at least strongly consider him as like a puntish defenseman. Alex Tuch continues to be one of the best players in the league for fantasy relative to his role. The price is now back up to $6K, but for a power play 2 player, he's basically Timo. Maybe slightly lesser shot rate, but it's pretty rare guys who can sustain 6K price tags with a limited power play role, and that's what Tuch's doing. So when you consider Norris is one of my favorite plays always, because the dude just doesn't do anything except get points. Now he probably needs 3 of them to matter on this big of a slate, but he certainly could do that against Boston. This full line stack is going to cost 13.6K. I mean, that's wildly cheap. And then Jack Quinn, Kingmaker Zach Benson. I might come back to him for the goal boost bet because I just love playing guys that are alongside Ryan McLeod and Zach Benson. UPL starts. I don't think the 4th line or the 3rd pair play many minutes, so that just filters everything upstream, which does interest me. Let's get to Detroit and Carolina. Detroit last game, By the way, I couldn't tell. I looked at the morning skate for Detroit. I didn't see Patrick Kane on the ice. I mean, I feel like I would recognize Patrick Kane on the ice, just, given he's Patrick Kane. Didn't look like I saw him, so I don't think he'll be back. But in any case, keep an eye out for that if you are interested in Detroit. Finney, Larkin, Raymond, DeBrincat, Kopp, Leonard. If Kane plays, I'm guessing Leonard just comes straight out and it's Kane there versus rearranging the bottom six. So Casper, Danielson, Soderblom, Rasmussen, Comfer, Van Riemsdyk. I believe Soderblom is also a question mark, but I didn't do too much digging there. And honestly, probably would have recognized him given he's humongous, but in any case, I wasn't looking for him. Gibson starts. The thing of note is Emmett Finney did move to the top power play last game. It had been JVR for the last little stretch. I don't know if that was matchup specific or what necessitated that, but just worth noting. Now we have a fully correlated top line here. 17.7K for Finney, Larkin, Raymond should that power play deployment hold. And DeBrincat's been awesome, even despite not having Patrick Kane. So John Leonard has been perfectly serviceable. 2,900. I think the matchup's pretty tough. All right, here we go. Shams is in the chat, so therefore we will be getting corrected in live time. JVR is power play 1. Finney was on it because JVR is on the bench. Perfect. That makes sense. I didn't do too much digging into it. JVR took it back later. Okay. I don't think there's anything new, so that sounds right to me. I don't know. Don't know for sure. In either case, Finney with Larkin and Raymond, the matchup probably stops you. But let's get to the Carolina side because Carolina does get back both Will Carrier and Jordan Martinook. They do remain without Jacob Slavin. I think they're going to be without Keandre Miller. They moved Nikishin up to Sean Walker's pair in morning skate. So why would you do that if you were planning on him playing on the third pair with Riley or Nystrom? So I suspect that will hold. Bradley Nadeau took power play 2 time, but doesn't seem like he'll play. So unless Carrier or Martinook was just a placeholder and Nadeau doesn't need to practice for whatever reason, I think Nadeau comes out, which would mean either Sean Walker or Kokaniemi, in my opinion, to getting power play time there. Svechnikov, Aho, Stankoven, top line, 16.8K. Ehlers, Kokaniemi, Blake, second line, 12K. And then Carrier, Stahl, Martinook. I mean, we know Jordan Stahl is going to do the power play stuff. That line is 8,100. And Carrier and Martinook will shoot. I mean, they're not going to shoot a ton, but, God forbid if this game goes crazy, 8,100 lines go well with Edmonton or something's Colorado. So I think that's worth considering because the Jordan Stahl role where he takes the draw on the power play and then if he wins it, he gets some power play time. Yeah, there's not too much as far as total punts on this slate, especially not in, on decent teams. Walt Ruff says, if he's not in, Sean Walker will operate there. Sure. Makes sense to me. So Nikishin, 3,100 is quite interesting. As a result of this, the time on ice will just, go up probably to pre-Slavin levels. I'm trying to think back now. There was a time where Slavin and Keandre were both out, and I think Nikishin kind of disappointed in that stretch. But you take a look at his stats on the year, his rates specifically, and he's well above average in all categories as far as DK points per minute, shot rate, and primary point rate. It's not spectacular, and you might just prefer Sean Walker because Sean Walker is basically the same guy, but he's shooting like 30% more. But Nikishin has, the talent, the prospect profile, especially if I don't know if Underdog has the 10-man drafts today, but if they do, Nikishin could be interesting there because his hits are, meaningful as well. So I don't know if you're trying to overstack Carolina over there, but a thought at least. Stankoven with Aho and Svechnikov, it's basically just rinse repeat the same argument I had for the Tuesday slate, where Stankoven has spent so much time at center this season that like his production just doesn't look up to snuff relative to what he's flashed as like a rookie what he flashed like coming in to his own in the postseason in Dallas specifically. Like he looked like an awesome fantasy player. And you can even see that, going back through last year, he was generating DK points 25% better than the league average forward per minute. That's pretty good. So far this year, that's just 4% better than the league average forward. So I think he's taken a step back because he's being asked to play a totally new role to him. Now he's back on the wing. He's with Svechnikov and Aho. Yeah, the power play one job's not there, but 4,200, the expected fantasy points are there for him. I think the top line's super interesting. There's 16.8K with a 33 expected fantasy point over the last 10. Between them, I look for about 2x to sort of say like, yep, they're firmly in my consideration based on expected fantasy points alone. So yeah, the actuals are not there, and that's the risk with Carolina. But I don't think Detroit's a great team by any measure, and Carolina should be up for this one. Home teams especially today will be very advantaged because the schedule is just out of whack with every team flying in this morning. So it's a weird situation for the road teams today, more so than other games. I think Brandon Bussey's going to start. I didn't update that, but yeah, double check your goalies, of course, always. On the Florida and Tampa next up. Florida looks like they'll get Mackie Samoskevich back. I don't think that matters a ton, but Erod and Samoskevich have been great. There's a chance that this game turns into a shit show, given it's Florida Tampa. And if Sam Bennett, Brad Marchand, do something stupid, both of them could do something stupid. You could see a penalty fest here. But if those guys, get tossed, something wild like that, you're talking about a very cheap third line that's been productive. Erod's been just very good this season. 6,500 for that 2-man stack. I don't mind it. I think they'll both get power play 2 time, but Eetu Luosterainen was getting power play 2 with no Samoskevich. More expensive options, of course. The second line, all power play 1 correlated for 18.2K. Sam Bennett really wants to make the Olympic team, I think. He's been awesome for the last month or so. Marchand continues to be the engine of this offense, even more so than Sam Reinhart. And Verhaeghe has even stepped up with the power play 1 role over that last stretch as well. Reinhart with Lundell and Luosterainen should get shutdown minutes, so I would expect that to be the Aho Svechnikov line. So Bennett against Jesperi Kotkaniemi might. Jesus Christ, why would I look at Carolina? Man, I'm all sorts of fucked up. All right, Florida at Tampa here. So Florida, that Lundell line will get Kucherov. Verhaeghe, Bennett, Marchand will get Cirelli, Gensel, Bjorkstrand. Cirelli's not been good this year. No Brandon Hagel. I think Hagel makes Cirelli look really good, if he does look good at all. So that's going to be something to keep an eye out. If, I guess, does Tampa control the matchup and put Cirelli out against them? Yeah, I think they do anyway. So I guess it doesn't really matter to me. Who controls the matchup, whatever. I don't know why my brain is not fully functioning, but it's probably the hours of drinking with DJ's family that my body was not built to sustain. Gee, I was going to say weird they scheduled Carolina versus Florida 3 times in a row. I honestly feel like I'm thinking of the COVID season when they scheduled the Arizona and St. Louis 4 times in a row. But in any case, yeah, let's try to. I'll try and keep things better guardrailed. I don't know why I was just looking at Carolina. Yeah, otherwise Reinhardt's been fine, but this line priced at 15.6K doesn't interest me. Reinhardt alone doesn't interest me. And yeah, I think it's Verhaeghe, Bennett, Marchand if you're doing anything, just for how good they've been. But honestly, I don't trust Sam Bennett and Marchand in this sort of environment where, let's get to it. Tampa is calling the big guns. It looks like they're bringing in Curtis. Well, Curtis Douglas has been in the lineup. They called up Scott Sabourin. I think he's going to play. There's some weather question marks in the Northeast, but I think Syracuse is clear now. So that if he's going to catch a flight to Tampa, which, believe it or not, there are many flights from upstate New York to Tampa, given this time of season. given the weather and whatnot. So I think he'll be able to make it. And I think they're going to try and get retribution for Brandon Hagel bullshit. And so if that's going to be, they attack, I think it was Seth Jones, but I mean, we know it's going to be, Bennett Marchand in the thick of things. So I worry about this game on a 12-game slate just because there's tail end outcomes that we just don't have much of a window into. But we've seen Tampa just fold like a deck of cards time and again against Florida. And I'm not too inclined to spend all this money when there's so many good options elsewhere on the slate, that this game just doesn't become a shit show. So Kucherov, Point, Gonsalves is how they practice this morning. Kucherov is, of course, always in play at 9,200. He's been excellent. Point, I guess, has been better. I'm pretty sure we've looked at Braden Point in over 10 games. He's been at like a 7 or 8 fantasy point mark, and now it's between 9 and 10. So that's better. But on the year, he's basically a league average forward who just plays a bunch of minutes. That's not good. Gonsalves sucks. I mean, we've tried that a few times at least. Gensel, Cirelli, Bjorkstrand is at least cheaper, 15.5K. You get Gensel and Bjorkstrand on the top power play. But Cirelli is no good. You can look at the expected fantasy points and say that he's worthy of a rebound, but I don't think it's coming for him. I just don't think he's much worth of anything without Brandon Hagel. So if anything, I would do Kucherov, Gensel, or Bjorkstrand with Darren Radish. Darren Radish continues to pretty much do everything from an offensive standpoint from the blue line. 62% above average, generating DK points per minute. He's playing more minutes. He's alongside JJ Mosier. He's 3x the primary point rate of the average NHL defenseman, which, yeah, of course, scoring a bunch of goals from the blue line on the power play helps. But, this next game, Jake Chychrun, he's better than Jake Chychrun at generating primary points. It is insane what Radish has done this year. So I think Radish is in play at any price. But again, my thoughts on this game are that it's going to be a shit show, and that if anything, I prefer the Florida side of it if I had to choose. By the way, I have the rainbow chart, so let's take a quick look at those games just to make sure nothing stands out. Boston, Buffalo looks fine. Detroit, Carolina. Detroit looks better than I would have expected. Carolina had a few weak games in there toward the end of last week, which makes sense. Toward the end of this past week of games, which makes sense considering the injuries they're facing with Seth Jarvis and Jacob Slavin. So the volume won't be there for Detroit, but an interesting spot if you like any of their players, especially on the efficiency side. Carolina looks fine, of course, volume merchants. And Tampa actually does look better than Florida here. So the rainbow sheet might steer you toward the Tampa stuff, which, did I screw up the home and away again somehow? Tampa at Florida is what that indicates. Let me check DK. Tampa at Florida. So I screwed up. I just everything's a mess for that game. Tampa at Florida. I screwed up the ordering. All right, that's on me. I think everything else should be good though. So matchups, I don't know. Lundell out against Kucherov. Bennett out against Cirelli. That almost has to be the matchup. I think I've done it about 6 ways and they all result in that. But I sound even dumber every time I do it. So let's just move on to Washington and New Jersey. I do not know what Washington's going to do. I listened to 4 minutes of Spencer Carberry basically talk about how he learned his lesson from Toronto that you don't fly out the day before the game. So they flew there this morning. They didn't do shit. I don't know if Tom Wilson's playing. I think he is, given he missed time due to illness last week. He missed the Thursday game. The Tuesday game. So I think he's in. I don't know what the lines will be. I didn't watch any of that game. I didn't watch anything on Tuesday. I kid you not. DJ's parents asked what I wanted for dinner. They go, all right, we'll do that. I requested chicken French, of course. His dad makes an incredible chicken French. I sat down. We ate at about 6:30. 7, we had finished a beer or two. Kathy gets out the wine. I call my buddy Zach, our friend from high school, ask him what he's doing. So we're sitting there talking till 8:30 or so, Kathy goes, "Hey, where's Zach? Why?" I go, "He hasn't answered." She goes, "Call him." Zach walks in at 9 o'clock. We finished 4 bottles of wine between 9 o'clock and 3 a.m. I did not pay a lick of attention to the hockey. So all that to say, just chatting with DJ's mom without DJ, classic experience. Highly do recommend. Washington at New Jersey. Washington coming off of a 7-3 loss against the Rangers that I still don't understand, as I was alluding to. I think they change everything. I think Tom Wilson plays. So here's my best guess. Protas, Strome, Wilson, Ovi, McMichael, Leonard. Yes, Ryan Leonard did return last game, so I'm guessing he's good to go. Bavillier, Dowd, Frank, and Duhaime, Sordiff, Milano. They love Justin Sordiff, so if he winds up in the top 6, I like that line less. I think he just is. I think he stinks, but they love him for whatever reason. And if that's the one wart that Carberry has, so be it. So we gotta just keep an eye out for what comes as far as pregame warmups. But if this lineup does hold, I would like Ryan Leonard a whole lot. He's been very good this season on a per-minute basis. He has the prospect pedigree. We expected this from him. So any chance he gets alongside a competent center that's not Nick Dowd, Nick Dowd is a fine center, but he's not going to elevate the offense of Ryan Leonard. So if he gets a chance in the top 6, I really like that. I think I would just go Jake Churkin with it, but if you want to play Ovi, if you want to mix in Strome, Wilson, fine. I could live with that. But on the road in New Jersey, not my greatest matchup in mind. New Jersey going to roll Mercer, or Timo Hischier, Mercer, Palat, Hughes, Bratt, Gritsuk, Glass, Brown, Cotter, Glendening, Nason. This New Jersey team, I don't know. I don't know what you people think of New Jersey, but they sure seem like a disappointment. And I don't know when it stops. Like, I don't know if Jack Hughes just needed a couple games to get it going, but it just seems like they can't score. It's been a thing for them all year long. The expected goals look pretty good for them, but you look at the actuals, and this is a 10-game sample size, and both offensively and defensively, New Jersey is just clawing things to an absolute halt. And yeah, it's not because the expected goals are, crazy out of whack or anything. So maybe it's just a thing where they're just in a rut and I'm overreacting to it. But with Jack Hughes back, you would think they would ramp it up, and they played a 2-1 snoozer against the Islanders. Was that goalie driven? I guess someone would need to do that themselves, because as I said, I was in no position to make such a judgment on Tuesday. But it is concerning, I think, that there's just not much happening with these guys. You look at the actual fantasy points last 10 games, nobody is above 10. Timo and Hischier should be based on their expecteds, but they're not. So there's not a lot going, and Washington, by my money, is the best defensive team in the league. I just think they're the most organized, they're the most competent, they have the best defensive forwards. They use Ovi strictly in a way that prioritizes his offense. All things that you think 32 teams should be doing, but not many of them do. So I don't like New Jersey much here at all. And I think Jack Hughes is overpriced. I'd rather play any of the guys I listed 20 minutes ago at the higher end of the pricing range. And while I think you could play Gritsuk, Glass, Brown, 2 of them get second power play time, 9,500, I just don't think you need to. What's the point? Nason gets power play 1 time, but what is that worth? I don't know. I just don't know. I don't know if these guys. Going to need to see it to believe it, I think, from New Jersey, even though Jack Hughes is back, and you would think that should change everything. Ottawa at Toronto. Shout out to Xavier Bourgault making his NHL debut here. That was, I play in a handful of dynasty leagues, and Xavier Bourgault, first rounder of Edmonton in 2021. I thought he was the shit. He had the shot profile. I think he played in the OHL, or maybe he's a Q guy given the last name. But in any case, I thought he was the shit based on those stats, and I took him in all of my dynasty leagues, and he just didn't do anything. He got traded to Ottawa's system in like a AHL for AHL trade. And I think he's been okay there. But anyway, he's debuting on the fourth line today. And if he scores a hat trick, it'll just make me sad because I'll think he should have done that alongside Connor McDavid. Kachuk, Stützle, Zetterlund, Perron, Cousins, Batherson, Giroux, Greg, Amadio. I think Brady and Stützle are the clear targets here. Heading into Toronto, there's really nothing that worries me. If you want to say Tanev, McCabe can shut them down, then by all means play Cousins, Batherson. I don't think that I care much about it's 14K for the second line and 19.6K for the top line, but I think I like Zetterlund so much more than David Perron just as like a entity for fantasy that I'm willing to just pay for the better line to not have to play David Perron. Basically is what that boils down to. There's I don't think there's a need to play Jake Sanderson at 6,700. There's a lot of good cheap D-men to target. And I think that the other expensive D-men are just significantly better. So can Sanderson hit a ceiling game for us? Obviously, yes. But I'm not prioritizing it if I play Brady and Stützle. So Brady, Stu, Zetterlund is my preference here. For that 19.6K mark, they have about 38.5 expecteds over the last 10, right about 2x, right about that fringe that I'm, targeting with my, when I look through things. Toronto, they're blowing things up. McMahon, Matthews, Domi. Michelli, Tavares, Nylander is super interesting. They played in Pittsburgh over I think they played a 4:00 game against Pittsburgh. Let me actually check if these were those lines from that game, because obviously we did the podcast for the main slate and we did not know anything that was coming from Toronto. So yeah, okay, they did go with these lines and these power play units actually in that game, and they won 6-3. And so what was interesting about that is William Nylander had, of course, had a pretty miserable season in terms of just like his overall fantasy efficacy. You look at William Nylander, you're like, that there's locked and loaded, one of the best fantasy guys. And he was basically, I don't know, because basically he wasn't shooting nearly as much as before. And you can still see that in the stats. His shot rate is just down precipitously, but the point rate hadn't been impacted at all. And so to see him go out there and get 6 shot attempts, I think 3 of them or maybe 4 were on net in that game, but scored a goal. Like, that line just doing stuff was very nice to see. But Michelli, Tavares, Nylander, 15.6K, perfectly power play 1 correlated. Where'd you go? And with a new power play coach installed, they moved back all the good players together between Tavares, Nylander, and Matthews. I like Matias Michelli. There was a time in Arizona, Utah, where he was like a guy I would click almost every night, just because he was so cheap and he gets in these shooting binges that just felt like he was playable. I think you can go back to that here. I don't care much for Ottawa, I don't think they're very good. I think that with Nyes in the bottom 6, I think Michelli, I think Bobby McMahon is far more likely to lose his role than Matias Michelli. So I think there's a lot of reasons to think that this is actually fairly safe for the time being. And you're never going to see a Tavares Nylander line priced at 15.6K again. Now, you can say the same thing about Matthews. You're never going to see a 13.8K priced Matthews line ever again. But Max Domi on the second power play is literally just a guy. And Bobby McMahon, I had high hopes for him this year. I think a lot of it has been his usage, but he's not been great this season either. So I'm sort of trying to catch lightning in a bottle more so with Michelli, who's come on the last couple games because he was healthy scratch before that and looked really good. Then I am interested in more betting on, Austin Matthews himself. So Nyes, Waugh, Robertson, 10.5K. If you're really sick, you could do that. That's the sort of line that I would look at in a smaller slate. So obviously we don't have a turbo slate for Ottawa, Toronto, or anything. But that line does interest me just in its composition. I think Nick Robertson really fits well with those two stylistically, but we'll just have to see it in action. So maybe I'm not playing Linus Olmark. There you go. That's why. That's how you bet on Nyes Wah Robertson. Whatever. Okay, that is not even half the games. Cool, great. I'm glad you guys decided to spend your afternoon and watch me ramble. Minnesota at Winnipeg. I did not see Minnesota lines for this one. I looked at last game and it looked like we expected it. They did lose in overtime to Nashville, so is Nashville back? But Kaprizov, Hartman, Zuccarello, Boldy, Eriksson, Johansson, Tarasenko, Yurov, Trenin, Foligno, Sturm, Hinostroza. Quinn Hughes and Brock Faber continue to pull their weight as a D pair. I was kind of shocked to see Quinn Hughes play 29 minutes in that game against Nashville because their D core is now healthy. I mean, they have Brodin, Spurgeon, Middleton, Bogosian. They're back, and Jake Middleton played like 14 minutes. Now, I think, obviously these guys coming back from injury, maybe that's not going to stick. But if Quinn Hughes is playing 30 minutes a night in Minnesota, I think he should be Cale Makar's price, honestly. Like the talent around him is just unbelievably better than his Vancouver days. And he's priced like a Vancouver player playing 30 minutes a night with, really good production. So Quinn Hughes, super interesting to me at 7K, even on the road in Winnipeg. We know that Jesper Wallstead starts. So the power play one is really all I'm interested in. You could make an argument for Ryan Hartman. I just don't think you need to play Marcus Johansson here or anything. Like if you're paying 16.8K for a line, I just don't think you play Minnesota too. But Kaprizov is very interesting at 8,400. If David Pastrnak is super chalky, I expect it comes directly at the expense of Kirill Kaprizov, just given they're in the same price range. And you look at, Matt Zuccarello, for example, like if people are playing Morgan Geekie or Elias Lindholm, you're sort of looking at those sorts of guys more so than you are McDavid Draisaitl, taking the hit for ownership from David Pastrnak type builds. So I think Minnesota is a pretty useful leverage spot. And again, add on Quinn Hughes, you're paying a lot for it, but you can't argue with the role. And so if you want to buy in it now, because this Winnipeg team has been bad. I mean, they're just inexcusably bad, honestly. You look at the last stretch, and I guess on paper it looks okay from Winnipeg's perspective, but they're certainly not one of the better defensive teams in the league. If anything, they're average, and they're terrible offensively. So I don't know how long we wait to bury this team, but Winnipeg hasn't had it this year. So I don't really think that we need to treat them as we did years past, even with Connor Hellebuck in tow, that they're a team that we need to avoid. They're going to go Connor, Scheifele, Velarde, Perfetti, Domestikov, Iafallo, Barron, Lowry, Pearson, and Niederreiter, Taze, Nyquist. The only thing that's maybe worth noting is that Winnipeg on the road, you can target the Jonathan Taze, more efficiently. The Taze and Logan Stanley of it all are really just two of the most embarrassing NHL players in the league right now. They're just not good. They're not NHL players, but they reliably go out there every night to play NHL hockey. So I'm guessing smart teams target them. If Minnesota are at home, well, maybe John Hines isn't a smart guy. So take that with a grain of salt. But Minnesota at home, they could go, well, we're going to throw Eriksson out against Connor and Kaprizov out against whoever we want. And I think that would make sense given Winnipeg's composition. The only thing that I would worry about is if this Winnipeg, depth is really what's killing them. I do not think Foligno, Sturm, Hinostroza are doing the trick. So we might sort of have ships passing in the night there instead of something truly worth targeting. But in terms of like a leverage stack, I still think Minnesota's viable. I'm not playing anything from Winnipeg. I just talked about how much they all sucked. Obviously, these power plays I did not finish updating before I moved on. Or actually, I think I just missed Tanner Pearson. Okay. Trying to move things around with Filardi and whatnot. I just had that spot marked as power play 1. So let's see. Yeah. Maybe Iafallo was on the power play 2. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure it was Perfetti, Nemestikov, Pionk, Nino, Tays, and then Nyquist was on the top power play with Connor, Scheifele, Velarde, Morrissey. That all sounds right. You just can't play pieces attached to Jonathan Tays at 5-on-5. It's just not fair to them. So don't do it. If you want to play the top line, it's 20.2K. They obviously are not getting there on their expecteds. And you look at the actual fantasy points and they're still at about 33.5, which at that price, again, I'm looking for, 38 to 40. So can they get there? Sure. But I don't want to. I don't want to go there in this matchup. Chicago at Dallas. They flew in. We don't know anything from them. So here's what they did last game minus, yeah. So Teravainen, Donato, Burakovsky was how they ended the Philly game, I believe. At least I was looking at the Hockey Viz for it, trying to construct their lineup. Bertuzzi, Dickinson, Mikheyev, Moore, Green, Nick Lardis, Colton Dock, Tony Nato, Sam Lafferty. I think Lafferty came out for someone. I don't know. Does anyone really care about Chicago at Dallas if we got 2.0 team total? I don't know. I don't think so. I did want to call out that Levshinov Grizzly just played as their top pair last game. Just straight up, like 24 minutes. It was a close game against Philly. So I think Levshinov's season is about to begin. He doesn't have a ton of viability based on any of these numbers here. 5.5 expected fantasy points per game last 10, 5.5 actual, below average shot and point production. But when you mix it all together, including block shots, I guess, he's actually 13% better than league average. You were talking about the second overall pick a couple years ago. He was a shooter in the AHL. And, Corey Pronman, Scott Wheeler, they both have him as, going to be a fantasy guy or a top prospect at the very least in Pronman's case. So I think you could start taking shots at Levshinov so long as they keep the 12-6 setup, forwards, defenseman. I think Bo Byram's a significantly better play than Levshinov. But if you need a punt, keep that in mind. I think that's a perfectly viable, slappy way to go about things. The top line with Teravainen, Donato, Burakovsky, 10.2K. I don't think you need to play all of them with Levshinov or whatever. I think it's all just a bad matchup. So I'd rather take Levshinov where you could luck into a blocks bonus and 1 point and be fine with that versus I think if you play any of Teravainen, Burakovsky, Bertuzzi, you just need multiple goals. And I'm not comfortable betting on that. Nick Lardis played like 8 minutes last game. He's pretty much an offense-only guy until we see otherwise. And in this matchup, I'm not interested. Dallas going Sam Steele, Johnston, Rantanen, Robertson, Hintz, Bork, Ritzkovian, Duchesne, Jamie Benn, Beck, Faxa, Bastion, no Labushkin, so Capobianco draws in. All the stuff that people are just clamoring for. Sam Steele on the top line sucks. I mean, it's going to be Matt Duchesne for parts of it, but because Matt Duchesne's now playing center on the third line, it's slightly less easy to move him to the top line for stretches. So, it's not like he's been any good since he returned from injury, but he's probably better than Sam Steele, who we know is an offensive black hole. Or he's a shooting black hole. I think he's got some offensive awareness, but yeah, not a guy I want with Wyatt and Mikko in my book. And then Robertson, Hintz, Bork, I think that's the line here, 17.2K. Rupe Hintz has been pretty poor over the last 10. There's, I think, some better reason to believe in the last 5 or so. Let me just take a quick look at the game logs to pontificate further on that. For 5,800, you're talking about 18, 15, 3, and 11.5 because he's scored in 3 of the last 4 games. So classic guy, if he doesn't score, he kills you. But if he does, hey, you're in business. And I think Maverick Bork is perfectly a good play. And Jason Robertson at 8,600 has been this team's best offensive player all year long. Mikko Rantanen's awesome, but Robertson has been driving the bus. So that's where I would want to go. And again, Maverick Bork is in this role, and I think he's the best of the bad options as far as top six wingers who are not on the top power play. So I like that line more than anything. 17K, 24, 25 expecteds and 24 actual. There's not much here other than the matchup and some prospect pedigree for Maverick Bork that really would draw things that direction. But it's worth considering, especially if you are trying to just take shots at Chicago in their current state. Nashville at St. Louis, which, by the way, let's pull up the rainbow chart again. Make sure there's nothing overly fascinating here to look at. We looked at Minnesota, Winnipeg, Ottawa. Actually, I guess we should have mentioned looking pretty decent against Toronto, just across the board, all positives, all at least top 6 or 7 between expected goals, Corsi, and actual goals, all at 5-on-5. This Chicago-Dallas game, Dallas looks fine. Dallas looks good by actual goals, best matchup of the slate, probably no surprise. So, yeah, not going to surprise anyone to say Dallas at home against this Chicago team without Nazar and Bedard is going to be a good play. So there we go. Nashville to St. Louis. Let's take a look at that. The rainbow chart is not excited. Nashville keeping Stamkos, O'Reilly, Forsberg. I believe we saw that confirmed. Evangelista, Howla, Bunting, Schaefer, McCarron, Smith, Joe Svechkov, Matt Wood. Evangelista, Stamkos are fine for their prices. Ryan O'Reilly has been good. He's just not a shooter, so he's stacking only. And then Philip Forsberg, if you want to spend up 6,800, he's approaching that class of the guys who are in the 8 to 9K range. And Forsberg remains 6,800. But given their production lately, how do you play Forsberg straight up over Stamkos? I don't know. So it all feels like you're just stacking. Roman Josi continues to disappoint, relatively speaking. He's just not been explosive, and the price tag has not moved to reflect that. So to me, it kind of feels like Roman Josi should be the engine of this offense. And if he's not, isn't it all just going to collapse around them? Now, I say that it hasn't happened yet, but Nashville's been very good without Roman Josi being very good. So I do struggle with the idea of this team actually having some juice and Roman Josi just not having the juice, and how those two things can coexist. But on the road in St. Louis, it's far from the worst matchup. One reason that I'm not overly interested in Nashville is that St. Louis is getting some reinforcements. Jordan Kyrou and Jimmy Snuggerud will return. After pretty long injuries, Jordan Kyrou, I think, missed 9 games. In that 10th game, he got hurt almost immediately, hence these zeros you see on my screen here. And then Jimmy Snuggerud missed, I think, a month. So, yeah, it's been a while since we've seen that. They have Jonathan Berggren, who I think is a good player, and they're actually going to use him in a good role alongside Shen and Kyrou. So now we have, all of a sudden, a lineup that looks NHL caliber. Neighbors, Thomas, Buchnevich, Berggren, Shen, Kyrou, Suter, Dvorsky, Snuggerud, Toropchenko, Sundqvist, Joseph. Maybe you disagree with me, but I think those forward lines are perfectly acceptable. Broberg, Parayko, Tucker, Falk, Fowler, Mayu. Sure. I mean, that's not great, but I don't think it's play on the road Nashville myself at pretty elevated prices relative to where they were a couple weeks ago. The power play for St. Louis, Thomas, Buchnevich, Kyrou, Falk, and Jimmy Snuggerud. Jimmy Snuggerud comes in at 3,700. So that's the cheapest guy on this power play. Jordan Kyrou at 5,400. He's had a pretty down year, but you look at the shot rate before he got injured, and it's basically exactly where it was before. Last 3 years, 61% above league average forward shot rate, 60% above this year. So the same shot rate, just not any production. I think Berggren can fix that. Dylan Holloway couldn't fix it early. So that's a problem. But, I like giving Berggren a chance here. And especially on like a turbo slate or something, I think Kyrou is a key interest of mine. 5,400 on the main slate. I'll have to take a look through pricing more like as a scroll. But I think he'd be okay as a one-off too, on this bigger slate. Buchnevich and Thomas, I don't have a ton of interest in. So, yeah, that is what it is. But, yeah, St. Louis coming back to health. Maybe they can do their New Year bullshit coming up. Now we get to the night games, 10 o'clock games. Or I think this is actually a 9 o'clock game Eastern because, time zones don't matter. Anaheim at LA, 9 o'clock Eastern. We saw Leo Carlson back, Kreider, Carlson, Terry, Gauthier, McTavish, Seneca, Vetrano, Granlund, Strome, Johnston, Paling, Killorn, Jackson Lacombe with Trouba, Zellweger, Gudas, and Ian Moore with Drew Hellison. I think it's stupid that Minchikov is scratched for Hellison, but I'm not going to sit here and blow a gasket over it because it's a matchup with the LA Kings. This game's going to suck anyway, so why not just have this game suck with the wrong players out there, Joel? Sure, have at it. Have fun. I don't understand the goalie pricing. Dostal 8,300. We look at LA, Anton Forsberg 7,100. I feel like I prefer that LA cheap goalie than I do Anaheim's, forwards, especially at these prices. But maybe that's chalky, and so therefore that becomes some leverage here because I do expect Carlson, Kreider, Terry to be power play 1 correlated. Last game with no Carlson, they just moved Granlund up to the top unit and kept Cutter with Kreider and Terry on the PP1. So I think that'll hold. Cutter with McTavish and Seneca, it's almost 16K for this, and it's just expensive. I don't really care much about LA Kings games. Or at least I'm going to try not to anymore because I suck. All right. Bird Doggy. I see that name all the time and I never know what it's actually supposed to say. So I never said it out loud. Quick 10-man underdog draft. Still need one. So there is a 10-man underdog slate. Okay, cool. Maybe I'll go play that after this. In any case, what would I do here? I'm certainly not paying 17.5K for the top line unless I'm really trying to leverage stuff that I am not aware of currently. And I'm definitely not paying 15.8K for 2 power play 2 guys in this matchup on the road. Birdie and bogey golf terms. Well, that makes much more sense. Well, I got to raise my game, get back to par here on this show. The rainbow looks pretty good from both sides, especially the shot attempts. Not really a surprise given the Anaheim, nature of it all, but LA also helping the shot attempt nature. So maybe your one-offs are in order here. I do think I have more interest in the LA side, though. Not only the fact that they have a goalie that I would want to play in 7,100 Forsberg, which, by the way, Kemper skated, but not going to play. So he's on the mend, but not quite back yet. I think LA comes out with some different line combinations. I know they gave us a projected lineup that was basically the same milquetoast shit. It was more Kopitar, Kempe, and Laferriere, Fiala, Byfield. But given the way they ended last game and given the fact that we didn't see lines as far as I know this morning, I do think there's a chance that they give us something wacky. So I have in right now Kempe, Kopitar, Fiala. They scored like that last game. I think they might have scored twice like that last game. And then Trevor Moore, Byfield, Laferriere, Fogle, Turcotte, Kuzmenko, Joel Armia, Hellenius, Perry. They also screwed up the power plays last game. They went, Kempe, Kopitar, Kuzmenko, Armia, Doughty, Fiala, Byfield, Laferriere, Clark, Perry. So splitting up Fiala and Kempe on the power play is interesting. So what I kind of want to do is I kind of on my main team want to leave stuff open for LA, because I do think if we get Kempe and Fiala together at 5-on-5, no one's going to play it, and it's against Anaheim. We know that those guys will shoot when they get the chance, and this game projects to have some of the best shot attempts on the entire night. It's not bad from an expected goals, actual goals standpoint. And I can get multiple spots right if my stack hits and my goalie that's way too cheap hits. I just think that this makes a lot of sense from a DFS standpoint, in how I like to play things. So yeah, keeping the light on at least for LA stuff. If it's more Kempe, Kopitar, and Laferriere, Byfield, Fiala, I'm less interested only because there's other games late that I really like, so I'll probably just swap off of it, even if I'm playing the goalie. But if I can get something that's really exciting, then I'll certainly be able to use my salary accordingly. Speaking of spots that I really like late, Edmonton at Calgary. Connor McDavid from another planet. He's been unbelievable. 20 expected fantasy points last 10 games, 24.5 actual last 10 games. And that's not including bonuses, by the way. So you're talking about literal 30 bombs almost every night, from McDavid here. Hyman has come along for the ride. RNH has come along for the ride. Draisaitl has actually been worse than his expecteds, and he's playing at 5-on-5 away from McDavid. Bouchard 6,800 hasn't really been that good relative to the price and whatnot, but obviously we know Bouchard has the upside as well to put a Slate away. So no one will be surprised to hear me say I am absolutely playing Edmonton Oilers against Calgary on this slate. To what extent, I think remains to be determined. If I can get Kempe Fiala stuff with a McDavid one-off or a McDavid Hyman, then I'll do that. If it doesn't work out, I can swap over to RNH. I can swap over to Bouchard. I can play Draisaitl, McDavid. The world is your oyster when you're stacking the Edmonton power play, because that's all you do. You just play the power play guys. You ignore everyone else, and they make the rest happen for you. No real need to talk about anything else here. If you're playing depth Edmonton Oilers, you're a psychopath. If you're playing Edmonton goalies, you're even crazier. So let's do Calgary. Not expecting changes. Huberdeau, Frost, Coronado, Sharangovich, Kadri, Farabee, Zari, Backlund, Coleman, Lomberg, Kirkland, Klapka. Welcome back, Justin Kirkland. I hope this game does not go to a shootout, because that's the only place he will be useful. Rasmus Anderson continues his tour of being a very good fantasy defenseman. I honestly think, though, if you're stacking this game, I'm just playing Bouchard instead of Anderson or Weegar. Like, I don't know. There's an argument that Weegar and Anderson are better fantasy defensemen than Bouchard because they have the blocks bonus in their range of outcomes so frequently, and that maybe you need them to get going for McDavid to need to get going. And they're the engines offensively and whatnot, but I just can't get there myself. So Michael Backlund is interesting. He's been really good. Blake Coleman too. 7K for two guys. I think one of them will at least be on the power play too. They've sort of flip-flop between Backlund, Zari, Coleman, but yeah, they've been good. They're going to play minutes chasing around McDavid, which it hurts, but it also helps, because if Bouchard has a giveaway or whatever people want to say, like, I think they can capitalize on it. And yeah, the price tag's just too low for what they've been doing lately. 20.4 expecteds between them, 19 actual for 7K. Absolutely no problem using that as a mini stack and making it a true game stack in Calgary. Otherwise, Kadri's too expensive for me. This Frost, Huberdeau, Coronado line, I've not been playing it. I don't anticipate playing it in the future. So, yeah, that's all I got for you. San Jose at Vancouver. I didn't update this. That's because we didn't get anything. Let's check if we got anything for San Jose. Askarov first. He will start. Otherwise, I don't think there are lines. Yeah, I'm just scrolling. The Sharks Hockey Digest doesn't have anything. And there's a chance that this morning skate, I guess, audio version thing that Dan Rusanowski just posted has information on lines. So I'll check that out post stream. But if they don't make changes to the lines after they got fucking walloped by Vegas, just absolute. I mean, yeah, that looked like a rough game from all standpoints, at least. Again, didn't watch it, but Chernyshov, Celebrini, Graf, Eklund, Wenberg, Toffoli. Eklund and Graf flipped at the end of last game, so if they do make a change, that's what I would expect. Skinner, Delandria, Cardwell, Gaudreau. I think someone else drew in for Adam Gaudette. Either Gaudette's hurt or whatever. It's San Jose. Not going to spend all day trying to track down random nonsense from 4 days ago. So Klingberg is too expensive at 4,700, so that's not an option. Celebrini at 9K to me is too expensive, but of course, he has cheaper line mates. You can make line stacks work, and they are playing Vancouver, who is not very good. So it's all theoretically in the range. I will just point out that if Eklund, Chernyshov, Celebrini comes to pass, that is a 17.8K line with 2 power play 1 players, and that over the last 10 games, average 42 expected fantasy points. That is nearly 2.5 times their combined salary. And when you look at the actual production, it's 33. So it's basically right around 2x their salary, if a little bit lower. So you could make an argument that both Eklund and Chernyshov are owed better results than they've gotten. And yeah, Celebrini certainly is a guy to help you get to those ends. Otherwise, I think you're crazy if you're playing this SJ2 as it stands. I was watching the Stochastic show and I saw that was like the top owned line. It's like, what are we doing? Like, just don't do that and you're better off. But 14K for Eklund, Wenberg, Toffoli. Have fun. Have a blast if that's really what is going to transpire. Vancouver, they get Elias Pettersson back. He's skating between Evander Kane and Kiefer Sherwood. He's missed about, I think, 7-8 games, so these expected and actuals are small sample size. But DeBrusk, Rossi, Besser. Let me check on these rates. I think those are right, but let me just make sure we're not pulling in the defenseman guy real quick because I just updated them earlier today. Elias Pettersson, the forward, that looks right. And then let me just throw E on that guy just to make sure nothing goes awry. Yeah, so Elias Pettersson, he's played a ton of minutes when he's played, but he's not done anything well, at least up to his usual standard as far as point rate, shot attempts, or actual DK points. So 6,200 in a decent matchup is not the worst price in the world, but I would prefer him to be, Elias Lindholm priced before I strongly considered it. Evander Kane at 4,300. I mean, just again, the sort of guy that I'm always willing to click like a shot prop for. I think the minutes will be there, given Elias Pettersson leads the team in minutes constantly. And then they left Rossi, Besser, DeBrusk alone. I think that was the line before. And then O'Connor, Kampf, Garland, Ogren, Sasson, Carlson is how they skated this morning. I had to make a guess on power play units. I don't think Garland and Besser will both be power play 1, and I think Besser is clearly superior to Garland. So I think Pettersson comes in, and it's DeBrusk, Rossi, Besser, Pettersson, and Steve Buium. Yeah, that's all fun and good. Top line, if it's fully power play correlated, 13.7K. I really like that. 26 expected fantasy points last 10 games, 15.4 actual. Snake bitten stuff from these guys. But the roles there, they're at home against San Jose on a day where I think they're the only team that has to travel to the US So I think that takes even longer than a normal road trip does. So San Jose had to leave early this morning. I think they're one of the more difficult teams as far as projecting how that impacts them in tonight's game. But yeah, I like Vancouver a decent amount. I do think it's pretty concentrated to the top line plus Buium, though. And I don't know. Obviously, Bo Byram's better than Zeev Buium. Like, we just haven't seen Buium put up anything like, rates in his career. But it's not the craziest thing in the world, I think, to like play both of them or something as total punt defensemen that are power play one in what just seems like roles that they're underpriced for, given their talent level. Let's wrap things up with Colorado at Vegas. A true battle of heavyweights. Unfortunately for Vegas, there will be no Jack Eichel and no Shea Theodore. So, bummer. Colorado, Landeskog, McKinnon, Nachos, Lehkonen, Nelson, Nichushkin. Note that last game they won 1-0 against Utah. Absolute barn burner, it sounded like. And they did flip-flop Nichushkin and Nachos for stretches of that game. I don't know the context, but keep an eye out for that. I don't know what it really would do. I guess it would make me kind of like Nelson Nachos if it were not to be the way I have it here. But otherwise, Kel McCarr is 8K. Brindley, Colton Olofsson combined 8.8K, and this fourth line is the fourth line. Whatever. I think it's pretty clearly McKinnon or nothing. Maybe Nelson Nachos could work. I'm not paying 14.6K for Lehkonen, Nelson, Nichushkin. They've been very good, but Vegas I just think is better, and I just talked about a 14K line. I think I talked about like 14K lines that I kind of like more than this. I think Brock Nelson would be a good one-off play if you have that left at center. He's been very good. The power play seems like it's back, and so you don't need to play Lehkonen and Nichushkin to take advantage of that. Finally, on the Vegas side, Barbashev, Marner, Stone, Dorofeyev, Hurdle, Alex Holtz, Riley Smith, Brett Howden, Braden Bowman, Brandon Saad, Colton Sissons, Keegan Colasar. Yes, that's right. Alex Holtz comes into the lineup on Tuesday. First time, long time, Alex Holtz guy here. Alex Holtz plays 18 minutes in that beatdown of the San Jose Sharks, leading the Vegas Golden Knights in time on ice. He's on the power play. He's with their two good players, Dorofeyev and Hurdle. People are going to play Dorofeyev and Hurdle, I think. I mean, they've been doing it ever since Eichel went out. This matchup's really tough, but is that going to stop them when Noah Hannafin's 4,300? And I don't know. I really think people will play them, and people will not play Alex Holtz. And it won't matter. Alex Holtz won't do anything. Alex Holtz will be out there on the ice, doing his thing. But he's no Braden Bowman. He's not Braden Bowman. He can't actually get the fantasy points. He can't do the things that just randomly happen that he gets fantasy points for. By the way, Braden Bowman lost his power play job, slides out of the top six. We're going to be talking here in a month, and no one will ever remember Braden Bowman's name again. But it doesn't matter. He stole all sorts of money from me over that month and a half. That magical month and a half where everyone and his brother played Raymond Bowman, who sucks out loud. That's depressing. I do like Marner and Stone together. That line with Barbashev, 15.6K. I suspect they will get the McKinnon matchup. So good luck. Hannafin with Ben Hutton or Braden McNabb with Caden Korczak. That's what you get to fight Nate McKinnon with. Just, again, best of luck to you guys. But yeah, I don't think I can get there in this game on this slate. So yeah, I think that'll do it. If there's anything you guys wanted to talk about, hit me with it in the comments. Otherwise, what I'm going to do is top stacks, and then I'm going to run through some of the unabated goal props just to see if there's any DK lines that I like for this DK prop, and we can call that guaranteed goals. So let's see. I don't know what the screen share right now. Let's just look at me. Hey, it's me. Top stacks. Actually, better idea. Let's look at the rainbow sheet. That is what I should have done. All right. a professional show, as you can tell here, as always. So, looking through things, Ottawa, Edmonton, Colorado, San Jose, New Jersey, Detroit, Boston, all sort of green in the expected goals index, which just lines up teams' offensive production last 10 games against their opponent's defensive production last 10 games, all at 5-on-5, and tries to quantify into one simple number. I'm going to go. I'm going to go with that Vancouver top line. Rossi, Besser, and Jake DeBrusk as one of my favorite stacks of the night. Also, what I like about it is, say, if I'm playing that with Edmonton, hint, hint, I can make adjustments for LA as necessary. So that flexibility, because like I don't want to tout an LA stack right now, just given I don't trust what the current stacks are for LA that the field's playing. And if those are the stacks, I'm not interested in playing it. But I think Vancouver allows me to have open roster slots. It allows me to play, expensive Edmonton with cheaper Vancouver and say, well, if LA pops up, then I can maneuver accordingly and not be sort of boxed in to certain prices. So let's do that. And then let's go with the Ottawa top line. Stützle, Brady Tkachuk, and Fabian Zetterlund. That line's, I think, about 20K. But if Toronto figured it out offensively, if they get going on the power play, if whatever you want to say, I think that only helps Stützle and Brady because they'll play more if they need to score. I am not afraid of the new lineup that Toronto's unveiling, where McMahon and Domi are helping Austin Matthews, who I believe still plays matchup minutes. Haven't looked into that in a minute, though. But everything points in Ottawa's favor here in the rainbow chart. And so let's not look a gift horse in the mouth. All right. So what I do when I get these stupid boosts from DraftKings is I use them because I don't want them to stop giving me boosts. And I'm lucky I get the big money boost. They give me the limit that DJ gets like $20. I think I get it like 100 or 250 sometimes. So I'll throw 50 on it usually. And so let's refresh this page and take a look at some goal props for the night. And obviously, all of these will be bettable on other websites as well if you're not a DK user. But because I don't bet things that are not boosted, for the most part, I shouldn't say never, but I'm almost always doing it on DK exclusively. So I'm going to find the best DK lines and then sort of work from there as my consideration pool. And again, you probably have other philosophies and whatnot, but I can zoom in a bit here too because I know it's small. Are there any other books we should look at? MGM, can drag them over to show up. Yep, perfect. And all the way, by the way, this is all free on Unabated. I don't know when they're going to paywall this, but it's super useful. So shout out to Unabated. All right, it looks like Caesars is the only other book with, well, I don't know if they're the only book with, but at least for this game of the 6 o'clock games. So I'll just trust that. I don't know what Fliff is. Never use Fliff, so I'm not showing them. All right, here we go. So let's just take a scroll. Anything that I'm going to bet almost always has to be best line on DK or tied with the best line on DK. So interestingly, we see DK sort of is shown even if it's tied with another book. So that's cool. There's nothing in this early game that I want a piece of. I looked at Bo Horvat, but it's also not best on DK. And I don't really think that line is very good. I know like Puck Luck has actual prices and whatnot, but I'm just trying to sort of vibes this. And so I use a market-based approach, which is, again, just taking what's offered by other books and sort of using that as like the baseline for what it should be. And of course, I'm, doing players that I like. Matthews plus 140 looks pretty consistent across books. Bo Byram plus 550 on the top power play. It's 4-1. 4.5 to 1 elsewhere. So that's an option if you like longer shots. Though I'm guessing his point prop would also be something you could target. That's a far bit safer. David Pastrnak. That's a good one. Plus 140, especially for a parlay where you got to hit 4 legs to get the boost of like 50%. Getting the most likely guys to score at still the best prices is never a bad approach to just sort of maximize the boost equity that you're getting. So that's a name that I will probably come back to. Yeah, this Zetterlund price plus 330. He's not on the top power play, so it's like why, why is his price so solid there? Same, Jack Quinn, he's plus 475 on the top power play. Why is Fabian Zetterlund so much better? I like Jack Quinn. I might use Jack Quinn myself, given I've bet him nearly every game since that Benson McLeod line came to be. And you look at all the other books, it's 4 to 1. It's 475 on DK. So I do like that. This Jackson Blake makes me think that Logan Stankoven. Let's see what his line would be. Well, shouldn't miss any of these. Josh Stone, another good option for the Sabres on the top power play, actually. So if you like that. John Tavares. Okay. There's a lot of best on DK lines today. That's interesting. I don't normally think I see that. Yeah, Logan Stankoven. Plus 310. He's 280, 290 elsewhere. So I might wind up on him. Again, the Stankoven thing, he's with Aho Svechnikov. What I also don't like doing is betting into stale situations. Like, is the sportsbook really going to be wrong for 2 weeks on, Morgan Geeky Lindholm Pasta? Like, is the Morgan Geeky line just going to be wrong for 3 weeks or whatever? I don't think so. But when guys are moving around, I think that's when the sort of no ball comes into play. All right. I think the NFL just started, but whatever. I don't need the chase overlay because I'm just going to lose. Yeah, Matthew Nyes, no thank you. Did we get Matthias Michelli? Best on FanDuel. Probably not a great line anyway. Okay, Morgan Riley is 850 and Bo Byram is 550. Yeah, that seems strange. Okay, maybe Bo Byram's not really an option because I don't love Morgan Riley, but I don't think he's all that different from what I imagine Bo Byram could be here. I'm sure this is thrilling content, but hey, you don't need to hang out. I know the DFS stuff is over, so God, and there are a lot of games also. So not my fault. It's not my fault. Page is, does DraftKings just hate the Sabres? DraftKings, you got a problem with me? You got a problem with me, DraftKings? Yeah. Come meet me outside. William Nylander. It's 2 to 1 on both FanDuel and DK. I kind of like that, but I don't know. 2 to 1 is really what I'm looking to bet. Okay. Now we're getting to some other games. 170 for Forsberg. 155, 160 elsewhere. So a little bit of value. J-Rob plus 105 pretty much everywhere. Jordan Kyrou, best on FanDuel. Bork, best on Fanatics. Shout out to Fanatics, a book that I downloaded. I think they reached out to me once when it went over from PointsBet, and I played it a couple times and was like, yeah, I don't know. I don't like betting. It's annoying. I do it because I feel like I can't push the edge on DFS, but I don't know. I just don't feel confident that like the lines are actually beatable and whatnot. So that is what it is. All right, let's any King stuff here. Adrian Kempe plus 185. If you live in the world where he's actually playing with Kevin Fiala instead of Trevor Moore, that's pretty interesting. Also, just in general, the Ducks being the Ducks makes all of their props pretty interesting. So a best on DK line, I do love to see that. The other options, Cutter at plus 225 in this game. Fiala at plus 190, also best on DK. The gulf between him and Kempe is non-existent basically. So I think I prefer Kempe straight up over Carlson. Now we're getting to the end. So let's see, 10 o'clock games. Besser plus 230. That power play, I think he's safe on the power play one, so that's fun. Connor McDavid, best on FanDuel, plus 135 on DK, plus 140 on FanDuel. If you like McDavid enough, I think you can bet it on, DK. 5 points, I'm not going to lose sleep over if you're using it for the boost. Evander Kane plus 280, other books 230 to 250 range with Elias Pettersson back. I think that helps him, but I don't know. Evander Kane also just shoots. He doesn't necessarily score, which is what I love about Evander, because you get DraftKings points even without goals. Any of these guys standing out? Marco Rossi plus 330. Definitely a value relative to other books. 290, 300, 275. That relies on me being right about the power play, though, and it would be too easy to see the Adam Foote just going, well, Elias Pettersson's a center and Marco Rossi's our center, so we're just going to use Connor Garland net front on the power play, and it's like, I don't think they should do that, but could they? Absolutely. Marco Rossi's not a big guy either, so wouldn't shock me if I were wrong there. And I don't think there's anyone else that I would be, racing to place a bet on here. So Zach Hyman also best on FanDuel. So yeah, let's see. Did I miss an Evan Bouchard line that maybe? Nope. Also best on FanDuel and considerably better on FanDuel, actually. So if you want to bet on the Oilers to score, head over to FanDuel. I'm gonna build out my little slip here, and I'm gonna start it with Tage, because Homer, go Sabres, whatever. Plus 150. I could go Jack Quinn or something, but given the boost and I need to parlay it, I was getting these things a week ago where I was getting like a 20% boost on any straight bet that was 3-1 or better. That's what I liked using Jack Quinn for. But I think for this, I would rather maximize my odds of actually making the boost useful. So I'm trying to keep it to like the, more likely to score guys in the 100s range. So Tage, I didn't look at Brady, did I? Where's Brady up in here? Brady is best on DK, 155. Let's just add him in. Him or Stützle is interesting. They're both best on DK, if I'm not mistaken. So, okay. So actually, Stützle's tied with FanDuel. So, I prefer Brady straight up anyway, but certainly don't fault you if you like Stützle. He's the flashy talent after all. I'm going to add... Kairu's here, but better on FanDuel. I'm going to go with Kempe, 185. Again, another value option. And then for a final one, where's Kempe? There he is. Final one, let's see. Minnesota. Did I look at Minnesota closely? Kirill Kaprizov. Oh, where's... Do they play at 7? Yes, they do. What's Kaprizov up to? 135 across the board. I'm not gonna fight it too hard. You know what? Stankoven? Nah. I'm just gonna keep it to the more stars of the night for this. So 135 on Kaprizov. Let's just call it. Let's call it a day there. A 41-1 parlay You get 50% boost on DraftKings with their little boost thing of 4 legs. 62 to 1. Let's make some money today. $50 entered for $3,177. Final bets are Tage to score, Brady to score, Adrian Kempe to score, and Kirill Kaprizov to score. All those lines are best on DraftKings. I don't know if DJ's posting stuff, but make sure you follow DJ at DJ_Mitchell94. If you want, other bets, because this is all I'm posting. And that'll do it for me. So thank you all for hanging out. I know the slates get weird this week because of the new year. So whatever. You're all hanging out. Let's just take a look now. Tomorrow, 2 games at 5, 2 games at 7, a game at 8. So nothing for tomorrow. Monday, we've got a 11 gamer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So Monday 11, Tuesday 5, and then New Year's games all day. So I know my sister's in town on New Year's Eve, so I do not think I'll be able to do anything for that. But I'll make an effort to do something Sunday night. I think DJ will be around, so Sunday night for Monday, let's plan on, and then we will be back in business after the new year. So thank you all for hanging out with me. Best of luck on this Saturday slate. From Doug, from DJ, from myself, have a good Saturday, everyone, and we will see you. Yes, go draft an underdog, by the way.
You're saying they're looking like an idiot.
Well, is that any different than normal?
This is the first time I will admit was unbelievably wrong.